Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast. We interview successful entrepreneurs and investors and ask them what's their biggest breakthrough moment in their career that catapulted them into the next level of success. And as they share their breakthroughs with us at home can have breakthroughs as well. I'm Zac Deane with special guest James Wellington. James, it's a pleasure. So pumped for
Thanks for
this.
having
You
me,
there?
mate. Yeah, I am, mate. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm pumped.
I'm pumped too. Everyone at home, get ready. Hold on to your seats. Let me do a quick intro and let's dive into this. This is going to be an unreal podcast. So, for those of you who don't know James, he's a faith-driven entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of the Ease and Amala Group. He's built multiple 7- and 8-figure companies, with his most recent business venture being the merger of Amala and Ease and becoming the co-owner and co-CEO of Ease Consulting. James and the team have a strong background in marketing and sales. That's how I met him, and they have heavily invested, developed, and innovated the direct selling and high ticket coaching space through their innovative approach to fintech, financial technology. So we're going to focus on all things innovation around AI, finance, marketing, sales, and the importance of business ecosystems to develop long-term scalability, growth in your organization. And we're also going to talk about faith and bring it all together. So that was a mouthful. I'm pumped. James, what has been the biggest breakthrough moment in your career thus far? Take us into that moment, bro.
Mate, as both faith-driven men, you got to start with the most obvious and glorify our Lord and Almighty God. So the biggest breakthrough for me is definitely coming back to Christ. Um, I think, getting away from the service of idolatry, which is what I'd been in, and like false ideologies around money and, always focused on money, 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 money. And, I know I'm going to say that a lot because it was really my focus for a long time, coming back to Christ, changing my focus from, service of oneself to service of Him are definitely the biggest breakthrough. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that faith, faith in the Lord, faith in the path, faith in the vision. And then as we talk and delve deeper and deeper, just really just helping people to understand that, Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And that if you can associate and more importantly, anchor your business in faith, some of the things you got to hear, I think people are going to be like, there's no way, but I'm going to tell you there's only one way, and it's God. So the things you got to hear on this podcast, just hold up to your seats.
Amazing. Like, did you grow up following Christ? Were you, take us back to that, like the early days of your walk. Has it always been rooted in following Christ, or you mentioned this, focus on money? How did that come about?
Most definitely. So I grew up with Roman Catholic, so very devout Catholic. So I was strong faith. My mum, up until the day that she died in 2006, she was a devout believer. I remember she had rosary beads and like holy water from Lourdes, which is like a sort of like a Catholic type Mecca for, Catholicism. Like you go to Lourdes and, you get blessed with the holy water. My mum was a very devout Catholic. But as mentioned, in 2006, mum actually passed away due to breast cancer. So I will openly say, and I'm not happy about this. I am ashamed of it. But look, I've worked through that shame, and I guess everything that happens for a reason. God obviously always gives us, the strongest tests to his strongest soldiers, toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So, I did turn my back on Christ in 2006, and I can confidently say that, that moment was something that I remember just asking myself, like, God, why? Like, why out of everyone in this world, the person that I've witnessed, my example of you, my example of love for you, sorry, was her. Why would you take her? So for, many, many years, I turned my back on Christ. I walked the path that, you don't want your children to walk. And when I say your children, I'm not even just talking about my mum and my dad. I'm talking about, God as my father. I walked away drugs, idolatry, alcohol, all those things that you don't want your children to get into. I was just continually spiraling downwards and downwards. But for me, it was this constant walk towards trying to not discover myself, but destroy myself. The enemy had a hold, as anyone that listens to this, the enemy looks to infiltrate at those moments where you're at your weakest. And I can definitely confirm in 2006, you know, the moment I found out my mum had passed, it was the weakest moment of my life, but also the defining moment of the beginning of my life, so to speak.
So did your mum's passing, did that then wake you up? Is that what you're saying? Or did you keep spiraling down, and like, how did you break those strongholds, so to speak, on that
Mm.
behavior?
So the thing about it was it didn't wake me up. It actually went opposite. But I look back on it now and it was all a part of God's plan, because actually what it did was it simply put, it turned me further and further into darkness. So I remember I've been studying discipleship with a man named Christian, who's also friends with Clarence, and you know Clarence as well. So they all sort of know. Everyone seems to know each other. So Christian, I did discipleship with Christian, and then I also did a bit of like discipleship and walk with Clarence as well. But one thing I realized was that God is more powerful than the enemy, and God's always 10 steps ahead. So, what I believe, you know, looking back in hindsight, what I thought was the moment where the enemy thought he had me in his stronghold, God actually used that to define and refine me. Like, you know, I turned my back completely on the faith, and I walked this walk of like just, you know, all the self-destructive patterns. But then when I actually got into business was when I realized I was like, man, I made my life so hard. Like I made my life so hard. And then when I started getting into online business and making money, everyone around me was like, why do you find this so easy? Why are you not stressed? Why does business not make you afraid? Why is this? Why do you take so many risks? Why is it that you can work 16, 17, 18-hour days and you're not tired? And I realized that God actually utilized my weaknesses to make them my strengths. It's like going to the gym. Imagine you go to the gym and you just train 7 days straight till exhaustion, David Goggins style. You rip and tear and stretch the muscles so much. So when people look at you, you're like, man, this is lightweight, baby, like Ronnie Coleman. Oh, and it's like the same with like literally what happened in that moment. I know looking back now, what I thought was me walking from the light was me actually taking the long way around. So that that way I'd go through the darkness, I'd go through the purge, I'd go through the refinement. And then when I came back to the light, it was just this catapult, you know, it was just this explosive moment, an explosive acceleration and growth. So I think for myself, I don't look at it as like this moment where I was going to end up there forever. God was never letting me stray from the flock. Jesus always goes and returns you to the 99. So I think that's something that's very important for anyone listening today. You may think that this is now your hardest moment, but I said this when I was actually sharing my testimony. You can't receive the message unless you go through the mess, and you can't receive the testimony unless you go through the test. So I think for a lot of people that are listening to this today, this thing that you think's your defining moment or your tough moment or your challenging moment is your refining moment. This is what the Lord is using to refine you, prune you, and really show you that life's a lot easier when you come back to Christ.
There's a really obvious conversation that's coming up just online and amongst my circles. People are getting baptized. It's more and more common now. A lot of people who are like saying, you know, deep down, I always knew it was God, but I was hiding from it. And now they're sharing it on social media. And it's just yeah, it's huge. It's amazing what's happening. How do you stay grounded and stay in, I guess, that voice of God amongst this wild expansion last couple of years with business and success? You know, like the noise, the fires you got to put out, all the ups and downs. Like, how do you stay grounded? Is it going to church? Is it a daily prayer? Like, you know, I see you jumping on the calls that we have with the team and you're like bringing God into the conversation. But how do you maintain that fire behind the scenes? A quick pause before we continue. Hey, everybody, please, if you're enjoying this podcast, if it's allowing you to think differently and have your own breakthrough moment too, please subscribe. Please like this video, share it with somebody else, and even comment below. I'd love to know what has been your biggest breakthrough moment listening to today. I read all the comments, and your responses help me shape the future of this podcast so other people can have breakthroughs too. All right, let's get back to it.
So the big thing for me is I'm a creature of habit. Like I think anybody that's in business or life that has like an addictive personality, you're all or nothing. So my first 12 months with the Lord, like my fiance just woken up, so it's like 7 a.m. here. So she'll be probably listening to this and laughing to herself. Like I was breaking the strongholds of like Catholicism. So I was very much condemnation. But then when I came into Christianity, we're now in an evangelical church. So we basically came back to Christ. So evangelical, obviously very much like singing. I like changed my whole patterns of life. So what you'll find, and if this is a little hack that I used, if anyone really wants to have like a simpler walk with Christ, is change your modern things that you do into things that have a faith-based orientation. And what I mean by that is I would listen to a lot of rap music. Like, don't get me wrong, like I still like love like Biggie, Tupac. Like, I love like the 90s hip hop. Like that's my like, sort of stuff. Listening to that music, you would find this negative approach. Like, I won't swear. Like, I try not to swear. I swear a lot less than I do. I still swear, but I swear a lot less. But like changing things. So what I've changed is like, I love hip hop. And rather than listen to worship music at the gym, which just didn't get me ready because I was so used to hip hop, I listen to like Christian rap. So I've just got like a playlist that's like Christian rap. So like Z is one of my favorite Christian rappers. So I listen to Z Radio on Spotify and just listen to like all these different bangers. I've got Dry Bones, which is like one of my favorite songs at the moment. I can't remember the exact artist, but look up Dry Bones Christian rap. Thank me later. It's like, it's sick. And it's just, you change the patterns of the things you do to be immersion and submersion in worship. And like one thing I really did was that I took myself into situations. For example, rather than just say, look, I'll pray on a Sunday, I was like, no, I have to have a daily practice of prayer and not just like 2, 3 minutes. Like I was used to meditation. So what I did was I took in meditative prayer. I remember asking Christian, I was like, please show me like a meditative type prayer because I'd done a lot of spirituality meditation work. So I did, it's called the throne room. So I for the first 12 months of coming back to Christ, I would meditate slash pray and go to the throne room of God to be with him and bathe in his glory. So it was very much an immersion versus me trying to just be a fly by night Christian, just a lukewarm Christian. I was like, nah, I'm all in. Like I would find myself sometimes doing 3, 4 hours of prayer a day, to be completely honest. I know people listening are like, where do you find the time? Let me ask you this question as you say that. Where do you find the time? You wake up early, you go to bed a bit later, and you stop doing the things that you normally do, and you go and actually be with Christ. I remember there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Miles Monroe. He's one of the greatest sort of pastors, I believe, or the greatest men of God to walk the earth besides Lord Jesus. But I've listened to uh, you know Dr. Miles Monroe, and he said he's like, how do you fill your time up with more time with God than less time thinking about time with God? How do you just fill your time up with Christ? And I was like, it's so true. It's so true. Like bathe in his glory. There's I can't remember the exact biblical reference. Clarence actually gave me this one. This was also my walk with Clarence. There's a scripture and it's talking about the young child was bathing in the presence of the Lord, whereas his master, when the Lord came to be with him, his master wasn't as present as the young child. And the young child actually was then chosen by the Lord to be the leader of the kingdom because he bathed in it. He actually experienced the love of Christ. He experienced the bathing. So for me, it's about immersion, submersion, and just really not making it like a checkbox to tick, like I make it my priority, if that makes sense.
Yeah, hierarchy of values at the end of the day. And it's so amazing. I can see, everyone has their own journey with this. It's such a personal experience, and I think, for me personally, 8 years ago, I saw like a real life exorcism, and that just shook my whole world of like, oh my gosh. And from there, it kind of catapulted me into it. And same thing, it's been like times of real focus and prioritization, or times of it's been lower on the list of values. But the times that I really higher like put it high on my time allocation every single day, and just have that inner dialogue of prayer and having these conversations, I find there's so much more inner peace and purpose that kind of oozes out from there. I'm really curious to know, like, take us back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. With what you know now, if you could go back in time and start your journey again, what would you do different, so to speak?
Um, the one thing would be not developing a business based upon fear, frustration, or anger. And I think that was one thing I would say because there was a lot more stress that I didn't need during business. And the actual growth of the companies that I had previously, they wouldn't have continued to self sabotage or destroy. Because, at the end of the day, a company that sort of falls apart, we can blame the world, we can blame external circumstances. But the truth is, if you're the CEO, owner, or operator of a company, you're the responsible one for the success of that business. So I think for myself, I was very, very, very good at explosive growth. And that comes down to my competitiveness, my ability to just go for it. I was the whole Elon Musk style. I'll sleep in my office. I remember that was one of the first things I realized and read. Elon was sort of really started to like become prevalent in the marketplace, and I'm like, I'm going to be like Elon, and everyone's like, maybe. I remember like my parents like, he's not the best example. My uncle's like, he's not the best example of entrepreneurship, you know. But I remember I'm like, yeah, but you guys say that, but Elon's rich, and I want to be like Elon. So it was all built from like fear and anxiousness, and I didn't really study. I never studied millionaires, so I studied the patterns of billionaires, and sometimes the patterns of billionaires can be quite unhealthy. I will say that. So looking back, it was like um, not study things of this world, but actually understand what God wants from your life. You know, now I've got a business that honestly is 1,000 times larger than anything I've ever built in terms of like revenue and potential revenue. But my life is at far more peace than when I was just doing multiple seven figures.
So if you were to, I guess, give some advice for the person out there who's starting their entrepreneurial journey for the first time, maybe they're transitioning from a profession, they've got an idea, they want to launch something, or maybe they're in their entrepreneurial journey and they're hitting some roadblocks. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs and founders today?
I actually mentioned this on a podcast last week. It's choose what you actually want in alignment with your truth. The big business isn't always true. Freedom can be true for a lot of people. You know, freedom's a lot easier to obtain than the big business. I'm at a stage now where I'm choosing, you know, growth for humanity. Like we call ourselves, Zac, you know, this business builders for the kingdom of God. You know, so we're building for the kingdom of Christ, not for the kingdom of James. So when you start your entrepreneurial journey and you're looking for that discovery, get clear on what it is that you want in terms of your financial freedom number. You know, I can assure you like 30, 40, $50,000 a month is more than enough. You know, I've been at all those different milestones and I'm like, if you just want to make 20K a month and travel the world, 30K a month and travel the world and get to experience life more so than experience business, get clear on that from the beginning. I think a lot of people have a convoluted vision towards their business where they want to go freedom, they want to go big, they want to go charity, they want to go this, they want to go that. And it's like all these pieces versus just being like, you know what? My actual truth is to experience life, have enough money to go and be with charities. That's that lot more clear than I've got to build a big business in order to have impact. You know, like someone that wants freedom, that wants to travel can go and do charity work in Ghana, Africa. And like, versus my goal with that is like, I'm going to make billions of dollars so I can give hundreds of millions, if not billions, to charity. So it's just a different focus, if that makes sense.
It's interesting in terms of like setting your goals. And I definitely see you as like a visionary, as you said, like Elon being, this like wild vision for the world that most people can't see. And it sounds like you set goals in a very maybe unique way. How do you set goals, and how do you take those big visions and actually make it a reality? Because it's one thing having the vision, but this next like actually bringing that to life.
So one book I read, which I think is really, really amazing, is Who Not How. And also too with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, the concept of setting an impossible goal. I think that a lot of people set possible, probable based upon the fear of limitation, of fear of failure. And it's easy to set a goal that you could probably hit, it's possible to hit, but it's far less easy to go and set an impossible goal because you've constantly got to live in the gap. You've constantly got to live in the gap of the current reality of where you are to where you want to be. And a lot of people are afraid to live in the gap because the gap isn't comfort, the gap is discomfort. But I find comfort in knowing that if I've been able to sit with the Lord and God's given me a vision of what we perceive to be the impossible, it allows me to bring to his possible to make the impossible possible. Because, you know, with the Lord, nothing is impossible because God created everything and we're his creation and we can recreate his image and likeness. So when you sit there, it's like, are you basing the impossible off of your probable, which is like all this conditioning, or are you actually setting a goal? You've heard me, Zac, like I don't even talk in lateral terms. And sometimes Brody and the team, they're just like, man, we're nowhere near there. And then as soon as it comes to pass, in the past, people used to be like, James, you have the Midas touch, but I don't declare it as mine anymore. I give it to God. You know, I'm like, no, I just sat in faith in what the Lord showed me. You know, like people will be like, how did you see this? How did you predict this? And sometimes we actually had a revelation moment that's been in past for 7 years since I really started in business. And it was the I guess, acquisition slash control of certain financial parties in Australia for finance companies. I spoke this into existence for 7 years, and now it's probably 2 weeks away from coming to pass. So I think for anyone listening, don't set the goal based upon what you can see, because you do not walk by sight, you must walk by vision. So base it on what God has shown you. What do you see in vision when nobody's there? You know, like if your friend's like 20K a month's the big one, let's all make 30K a month. No, no, no. Like, what do you see with God? And that's how I set goals.
Just quickly before we continue, if you're an entrepreneur out there or a high performer who wants more clarity and direction in life, or maybe you're going through some kind of turbulent transitional phase, I want to share with you something that I co-built. It's called the Life Blueprint System. It's an AI-powered goal-setting process that helps you create a personalized life blueprint, kind of like an architectural plan or a business plan, but for your life. And so it allows you to take and capture those big ideas, those amazing thoughts you have, and to turn it into a proven plan of action. And so if you want to stop guessing and start building your future intentionally and consciously, go to the lifeblueprint.io to learn more. Let's go back to the episode. It's awesome. That's super cool. I think what's really prevalent right now and really obvious is that AI is changing the game for everything, whether it be goal setting or entrepreneurship or, just education. We can literally learn and grow faster than any time in history. And it's really exciting, but there's so much movement at the station. And I know that you're on the cutting edge, and what you talk about is like finance and AI, and this whole discussion. So like, how did you, I guess, several years ago, how did you have that vision, or how have you directed your vision to, well, I guess I'm answering the question here. Obviously it's God directing it.
Yeah.
How did the finance equation come on the table, and what has that opened up for you? Because I know how you integrate AI and financing now, and it's really changing the game for high ticket, network marketing, medical, home improvement, things like that, right?
Well, the way I look to do is notice and spot trends and patterns. I was speaking with a close friend of mine, Shane, yesterday about this, and I said, whenever there's an influx of opportunity in one aspect, what's the opportunity post that influx? So sometimes people call it opportunity costing when they miss, like, what's the opportunity costing you? But I call it like post opportunity metrics. So, for example, previous business that I had was Australia's largest privately owned digital marketing school. We had 12,000 students. So, that's a huge thing. So the post opportunity from that was go high level. Now that's an immediate post opportunity. 12,000 people, 25% of those, we had 3,500 people on Go High Level. Everyone would sit there and go, you guys are crushing it. 97 a month, 3,500 people. Congratulations. Sounds great in theory. That was a limited thinking perspective based upon where I was at with my journey with God and also my vision. That's cool. That's an immediate post action thing. That's an MRR play. It's an ARR play. But what's the other thing that happens in the marketplace is that businesses need things. You want to go from wants to needs. So what I'm looking at now is the influx of opportunity. There's more marketers in the world. We're responsible for 12,000 of them. Let's say 5,000, 4,000, whatever are active still. Think of all the coaches, think of all the consultants, think of all the insurance, think of all everything. So what I'm looking at now is all the businesses that have grown, and I start to track metrics and trends in the marketplace. Like, go and look at economic trends, not just my mates talking about this is the next wave. I go and study economics and like economic trends. So I know with Trump coming back in, I've known this since that came back in with inauguration. Love him or hate him, I'm not going to make this podcast political. But what I did know was that that's going to be focused on driving revenue to the economy. Now, the US personal economic debt, so the personal consumer debt, is $7.2 trillion per annum. Now, that's the personal consumer debt of the United States. Now, I also know that I have a huge, extensive network to people in business. I have a huge, extensive network and potential to do marketing, sales, direct sales. So the obvious thing for me was I'm looking at all these businesses around me doing 6, 7, I've done 7, 8, and I'm like, 9 seems like a stretch if I keep doing what I'm doing. How do I pivot to the flow of money and abundance? So I put 2 and 2 together through the glory and grace of God. 7.2 trillion here, access to millions and millions of people here. Let's connect the two together. So stepped into where the flow is. And when I set the impossible goal of $5 billion valuation by 2030. So in 5 years, the acceleration of that occurred by going for the bigger goal versus let's make a sale a day. Like that would mean that, I'd have to continue to sell more, sell more, sell more. And versus like, let's develop that. So what we've done now is, again, I want to make this clear, and I always pre-frame this. No, I'm not a billionaire. We just have access to billions, because people think when you say we've raised $3.5 billion, I wish I was. I'd be sitting there staring at this a little bit more. Nah, I wouldn't. That's idolatry. But but like we've raised on average, I say 3.5 billion on this podcast. Anyone listens, as long as the book perform, it's almost whatever we like, to be completely transparent. That's the way money works in the States. If your book performs and people make repayments and the private equity groups are making money, they'll give you more money. So we've raised $3.5 billion in our first few rounds of capital raising to lend to coaches, consultants, medical. My big one, which is going to be anyone listening to this podcast, please reach out, Ease creator capital. So if you're a digital creator or you're a creator and you haven't yet monetized your influence or flow from terms of your following on social media, Ease creator capital and helping to partner you with different creators, brands, and offers that isn't just, hey, download my 10% discount code for supplements. There's a huge creator economy at the moment where social traffic is so big. We're starting to plug into those things. So that probably answers in a long-winded roundabout way. I do apologize. That was too much.
What was really interesting there, yeah, like there's a common theme amongst all these interviews that I'm doing is that there's either firstly it's getting in touch with our authenticity, our God-given purpose. When we align to that, that's where we shine. That's definitely a common theme. And secondly, it's about aligning to these trends in the market, right? You're saying that, there's shifts in finance that this probably wasn't possible a few years ago, maybe without AI or without social media, without these influencers. It's changing the game for everything. And then what you spoke about is really honing in on your skill set, your advantages, like what is it that you can really capitalize on based on your experience. And just, it sounded like you took a bit of space back, like to really reflect, like how did you make that decision and how did you connect those dots? Do you spend a lot of time like out of the noise of business? Do you make sure you're in silence to hear that voice? Because you're in it, you know?
Yeah. I think everyone's different. I know as the company grows, I'm spending more time, and there's a lot of protection mechanisms. And when I say protection is like people. People are like people are starting to join our organization to give me more time to potentially have that protection side where I do get more time to think. So as our organization's grown, our C-suite's starting to come in. As they say, like the CEO can be the driver, but can also be the destructor. So there are times where I fully do admit, like, I'm not perfect. In the eyes of my father, I am, but in business, I'm definitely not. I make mistakes, and I'll go very fast. So I personally like to make decisions in chaos. I know that sounds really weird, but I thrive in the decision fast. Whereas I think sometimes people can call their indecision or their lack of decision or their inability to make a decision which is worse than making a decision, if that makes sense. So people like, let me think about it. Whereas I'm like, no, like if I have to think about it longer than 24, 48 hours, I already know it's the wrong decision. So I act very quick on decision making. I'll be like, boom, boom, boom. It depends on the level where I do have to make a decision. If it's an entire company and organization, it gets filtered through now as we've gotten a lot larger. We're in a beautiful place. And for anyone listening, the faster you grow and the faster you fail forward is the faster you succeed. And I know that sounds really weird, but like, don't sit there and lick your wounds if you make a mistake. Like we made a mistake last year that potentially cost $500,000, but the opportunity that we learned made us $10 million. So you make decisions faster. You don't sit there and get upset about losing money. The bigger the decisions, the bigger the business, the bigger the losses, but also the bigger the gains. So to answer really directly, I make decisions fast from a macro level, but from a micro level, I make decisions slowly before it gets past everybody else.
Well, I'm very excited for the future. There's I had the call with you and the team the other day, and I was like, oh, okay, there's there's something here that I didn't see before, and I'm like connecting the dots for my network and community and people listening to this podcast. It's a very, very exciting space. I really do see that like the coaching space is changing. Hey, Like, I feel
Yeah.
like there's something going on, and it's been happening for a while. It's just like, what do you think's actually going on, and what's the future of the coaching or high ticket space look like for you?
The big thing is that, and I love coaching, and I want to make this clear. Like we have thousands and thousands of coaches. So if anyone takes offense to this, it's not aimed at you. And if it is an offense, um, look at reflection, like internal reflection. I love you and I honor you if you listen to this. Like, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm trying to give you a prevalent warning. Some of the things that we still hold value to as coaches, the marketplace will no longer perceive as valuable. So what I mean by that is, like, look at the trends from the top. Has any one of you listening right now, you're following your Tonys, your Deans, your Grant Cardones, like, they're AIing themselves. There's less live events. There's less charge $30,000 to come to my retreat in Bali. Like, the consumer market is honestly, it is changing where it's not BS. And I don't want to get aggressive here. It's not like the BS radar. It's not that. It's just the accessibility to information. Like, the human mind wants an answer, and the benefit and drawback with AI is, if you can train AI correctly, you can give the person every answer they need faster, greater, more in depth than you could give it yourself. And I know that. Like, we told our team, and Zach, you've probably been on these calls. Like, I've got a lot of team in PH, like Philippines, and they've sort of got a little bit like, they're watching things being like, am I going to lose my job? I said, nobody's going to lose your job. But what the truth is we're not going to need to hire as many people, because we're going to have expert AI specialists. So my content team now, that's why I'm loving doing these podcasts. The production that we have with content is second to none. But then from a coaching marketing perspective, like, say for those people that teach like media, content, social media, like, AI is going to take a lot of that. Like, I had a digital marketing school and I'm like, shit, like, like, we're gonna get pumped if we keep doing this with AI. And I resisted it at first. Like, I was like, do not fear the machine sort of thing, like Terminator, like, come on, fight. Like, but I knew, like, I was like, this is coming. But then with coaching, like, there's certain offers. So like a lot of publishing offers where, like, what I mean by publishing is people that teach people to write books and become Amazon bestsellers. That is getting completely washed. Like, you can't really do that. But then that person will argue, but it's not true, it's not real, it's not that. But the marketplace doesn't know the difference. You know the difference as the business owner, but the marketplace wants the outcome. It's like, just give me the drill, or sorry, just give me I just want the hole in the wall. Like, you don't need to explain to me the benefit of the drill. Just give me the drill. And I think with your mindset coaching, your things like that, there's always going to be a need, but everyone's now influencing positivity. A lot more people are coming back to Christ. And it's like, do we need to have such an in-depth understanding of life coaching, mindset coaching, when there's such a prevalency in the marketplace of Christianity coming back to Christ, people are coming back to save, like, becoming saved? Like, that industry is getting washed out by not even by God. Like, God's not being mean and saying, see you later, like tiny ants. Like, God isn't with a magnifying glass like sometimes people think. But it's like, you've got to look at it like the information, the accessibility, like social media, the algorithm. Like, if you're wanting positive thoughts and you click on positive things, you're not going to have to go and pay. Like, why would I pay 20K for this person when Mel Robbins is putting out free content? Tony Robbins is doing this. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just the production, the content, it all has a flow and effect. So coaches listening to this, how can you pivot, change, utilize or harness? And then one thing I would recommend is dropping your gates to get into your access. So, like, how can people see you that then will have a higher determined ability for you to charge more? You can't do these payment gateways and big walls anymore. I'd recommend going more towards mass production, getting people to see you, getting in their forefront. So then if you need to or want to make a 10 or 20K sale, you're going to have to talk to a lot more people. That's just my recommendation for anyone listening. Focus on production and focus on exposure if you still want to sell super high ticket.
I see it. I see it happening more and more every day. Like, I'm chatting to friends, and instead of recommending coaches now, I just recommend just put it into AI. Like, just go to AI first. Like, you're going to get halfway there if you just kind of ask a couple of good prompts and things like this. I think the big thing that's also changing that I'm learning from you and the team is like this importance of finance. And there's this whole, I guess, area of like debt recovery, or like really helping service people that maybe don't have the money right now, but they can at least do these monthly repayments. So I know that there's this new arm of the group talking about EaseCap. Is that something you can share here today? And then,
Yeah.
how can we get people involved with that today? Because I think that's such an amazing solution that's going to be a game changer, especially as these businesses are looking for ways of staying afloat right now. There's a bit of a pinch. Pause before we continue. The first way we as entrepreneurs introduce ourselves when we walk into a room, it's our energy, right? People feel that. And secondly, it's our face. How healthy do we look? So for the entrepreneurs out there who care about how they show up, I'd love to share with you personally. I've been utilizing some Korean skincare products now just for over a month, and I had no idea about them up until, even just 2 months ago. But it's by far one of the best investments I've made for my skin. I feel it's literally making me look younger, and it has this like glassy, super fresh look. And so this is the number one exported Korean beauty brand and skincare line in the world. The ingredients are second to none. Even pregnant women can utilize them, because out there's so many products that have toxins in them that really make our face not healthy over a long period of time. And so if you're out there and you want to match the energy that you output with how healthy you look, you can trial these products risk-free for 30 days. If you don't like them, send them back and get all your money back. If you're out there, if you're curious, check out the link below to learn. Let's get back to the episode.
Most definitely. Like again, this is all God's calling and plan. Like my number plate on my car is literally PIFs. Like if you talk about the sales bro that loves like paid in full sales, that was me. Like younger days, service of idolatry, idolatry of buddy. Like I'm talking like I would scream when I piff someone. I was like, yeah, we'd have an office, we had a bell, like full sales, bro, sales floor. Like I we had our sales team was called the Lad Pack, and I was the Lion Tamer. Like I literally, we had like spirit animals, and I was Piff Lion was my nickname, and then you had like the Brody was the Otter. Like we had all these nicknames, and like literally they called me Piff Lion because they would listen to my calls, and I would circle my prey. Like it was shocking looking back. So in terms of anyone like Piffs, that was me. So when I say I went from like sales bro to like finance, financial education, understanding, my goal is to help people get access to funding, but not get access to these like credit card stacking, these huge APRs, these things that I really dislike. As I mentioned, I lost my mum in 2006. So I don't get to have this privilege, but I get to protect people that aren't going to do this to others. If you wouldn't do it to your mum or your nan or your auntie, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your father, like anyone, like don't do it to somebody else's. And I think for people listening, like there's a very much a BNPL culture where it's like get the person in, just get them into buy now, pay later. Did you know that like the average buy now, pay later loan like affects someone's credit score by nearly 20 to 30 points? And if they miss or default on payments, they can go from like the 800 credit score to a below 650 in a matter of like, I think 3 or 4 missed payments. Like it's ridiculous how quickly this stuff. And if you get a stack of BNPLs, it gets even worse. So we wanted to create this gap between financial education, financial literacy, but accessibility to money that gives alternatives to these things. I will say it, there's things out there that are like Split It, Paver, like credit card stacking, Amex Blue cards. Like, I've used those in the past. I've been part of that problem. But for any of those guys listening in America, especially, like, stop doing it. Like, know that person doesn't need to override or stack the absolute heck out of that card just to buy your course because you're desperate to get commissions and keep living your Miami lifestyle. Like, stop doing it. Like, be a person that actually, you know, if you're working in high ticket coaching consulting and you're a business owner, you should stop doing that as well. Like, be a person that assists them, like, some of our stuff is like we have like a guaranteed type approval program. We had one that was GA, which we actually got rid of when I came into the company. I didn't like, and I said to Dave, I said, this is one thing I don't want to use anymore. Yes, it approves everyone from a subprime. So our new subprime, which we've actually fully been backed by private equity, we designed it in a way where it's eloquent, but more importantly, is sufficient for both the business and the client. Now, we don't charge the client huge APR. So EaseCap's beautiful. I love it as a product. Yes, it's not ideal for the business owner if you have high delivery costs. So if you're a coach consultant with 20K a month, 20K, product, and it costs you 10K to deliver or 50, 60 hours of your time, this isn't the ideal solution, but we've got others for that. But EaseCap's like a subprime lending option with a 4.9 to 5.9% APR. that's like such a low interest rate. That's like a mortgage. Like that's like one of the lowest interest rates you can get. It's almost free money. You know what I mean? So when you look at 4.9, but then it gives the ability to pay off over 5 years, no early exit fees, no penalties, no clawbacks, no recourse, which I just think is beautiful for the business, but also for the person. So we designed it with the private equity group to be for that. So subprime for clients that have a 580, 550, 500 credit score even, which is very, very low because it's actually out of 1,000. I think it's even out of 1,100 in America or 1,200, and it goes down to 500. So it's like you can imagine very low. But the reason why I'm saying that is because we have other technology, which I'll talk about later, that we can genuinely see every single person's financial data based off of Vantage and FICO 8 score. So when leads come into our organization, not even like applications leads, which you're a part of, Zach, we can see all of their financial credit data. And the truth is in America, 70 to 80% of leads that come in are upside down and they don't qualify for prime credit anymore. And the problem with that is that business owners don't know they're spending money on advertising and then they're trying to get their salesperson to go and rip someone through a deal, get it on their credit card. But that person shouldn't be pushed that way. Give them a better solution, so to speak. So that's something that we're very passionate about. And Zach, you know, you're a part of, and we're working hard to re educate the marketplace, both the business and consumers.
For sure. It's just education, bringing people into the conversation, giving people some options and solutions now, which is super, super cool. Who is this best suited for? Who should get in touch with you? We'll put a link around the video somewhere, but like who's listening should be like, oh my gosh, this is something.
Coaches, consultants, first and foremost, that's our bread and butter. You guys are probably using this in some capacity already. You may not even know it because we've got a lot of partnerships. But if you want to come directly to us, obviously AI Funding Solutions is our main one, but just Ease Consulting. We'll put a link obviously in the bio for this to be able to get access to our finance. We've got an array of different finance suites. If you're selling a product ranging between 5,000 through to 100,000, we can definitely service you. Also, too, I'd say network affiliate marketers, add this to your business. If you're selling high ticket network marketing or affiliate marketing, definitely add this as well. And obviously medical and home improvement, any business really. But I like to say coaching, consulting first and foremost.
What I'm really impressed by is what you guys were mentioning. Can I mention the IVF stuff and the home improvement
Yeah, for
angle as
sure.
well? I was
For sure.
really impressed that like, there are people out there, good, hardworking people that just can't afford that jump, for a loan or the repayments and things like this. So this really does give people an easier entry if they can afford these like monthly repayments. It allows them to get the IVF for their family to start the future of their family, or it allows them to restore the house that maybe they weren't able to fix something in their home and things like this. So, it really brings it down to earth in terms of the impact and the results and benefits for people, which is really cool to see. It's not just this coaching industry like
Yeah.
woohoo, which is great, but it's like, okay, let's bring it into people's homes, you know?
I think remember as well that departing from money is like a fear that people have. Like I'm very financially blessed, but my fiance and I are going to get a dog actually today, little King. I've been wanting a dog called King for a long time. So we've got Arthur, our cat, and King. So we King Arthur. I think it's hilarious, but maybe that's just me. But so we're getting a dog today. And straight away, I was like, in my head, I'm like, hopefully they have a payment processor so I can put it on my Amex. I know it's like such a beautiful moment when my brain just goes Amex 45 days before I've got to pay for anything. So I think a lot of people think similarly. Like if you have to ask someone to give you $5,000 or $10,000, there's a lot of trust that needs to be built there. So just remember that when you're not offering finance, if it's $20,000, you could actually offer it for $200, $250 a month. So, like, I think for a lot of people, like, go into the flow of what the person knows. Like, who here has subscriptions as you're listening that you probably hadn't cancelled? Big one in Australia is KO. I love my NRL and footy. And when it's not NRL season, I'm normally on it and cancel it straight away. I watched KO for the first time in 4 months since NRL season finished just to watch the college football final. And I'm like, I've been paying like $40 a month for this, but it was more of an inconvenience to cancel it. And I just had it set up on auto debit. And I think that's where when it comes to these things, like that's why it's so important. So with the IVF, like people would probably go, oh, everyone that gets IVF would be rich. They'd want to just be able to pay for it in full. But the truth is, like some people, I've got friends that are going through their third, fourth, fifth round of treatment. I know, unfortunately, it's hard. Like it isn't something that's just one hit wonder. But we work with a company now in America, which we're finalizing, that have got 250 clinics, and they're bringing in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis to help the IVF actually, really take place and occur even greater from a neurological perspective. But like that process is like $35,000. It has an 80 to 85% success rate. So you'd like, look, but do you want to risk 30K in order for 85? There's still that risk versus, hey, you can finance this amount. It gives that person the ability to get access to it without the risk exposure in their mind.
Super cool. Super cool. Bring on the babies.
Yeah,
Bring on the
100%.
healthy babies. It's a whole nother topic, but I want to switch gears here. This is one of my final questions. My favorite question is this: it's what challenge do you want to impart with the people listening today? Like a challenge for them to stretch their comfort zone, something that's this week, this month, this year, something to help them have a breakthrough. What would that challenge be that you'd like them to walk away listening from today with?
So there's two things that I'll focus on. Is one is the what is it that you currently believe to be possible based upon tangible, and set that as an impossible goal. So if it's $1 million in the next 12 months, what would you need to do to make $10 million? If it's to say get 10%, reduce 10 kilos in body fat in 6 months, what would you need to do that in three? Like, obviously some things you can't be like 10 kilos a day. You could go and do saunas and stuff, but I digress. But what I'm saying is like, you need to look at it like what's impossible for you now that you've built comfortability around and made it a possible, probable goal. Set it as impossible. And then the second with that is don't develop goals based upon limitation, because what you're doing now is you're setting, even if you don't have kids or you do have kids, you're limiting yourself by the now. And what I'd like to recommend for you is set your goals for generations to come. There's a great quote from the movie Troy where the young kid says to Achilles, he's like, "Are you not scared of this? Are you not scared? This is the biggest man I've ever seen." Achilles says, "That's why nobody will remember your name." And I remember watching that as a young child, and I was like, that's a big thing for me. This is a huge mountain of a man. This is a huge mountain of an impossible goal. And I've taken that same thing. And I know it's probably like so cliche, like Troy, Achilles, Brad Pitt, but that stuck with me. It was like, that's why nobody will remember your name. Because if I lived in fear of the impossible, which nobody else thought was probable, then nobody will ever remember my name. And I'm only performing for an audience of one. And when I sit on the judgment throne, on the throne of God, and I sit on the judgment seat, I want God to say, I'm proud of you, my well and faithful son. I'm proud of you because I know that you've done everything I've asked of you. So don't sit there and just do what you think you need to do. Do what you believe God's asked of you. And if it sounds scary, impossible, one thing I will recommend and remember this saying, God will give you the vision before he gives you the plans. Because if God gave you the plans, you'd say no to the vision. So go forth to the vision and let God show you the plans as you're walking the path.
As you were sharing that, my whole body's like shivering, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's such a powerful quote, right? To be remembered, to go for your dreams, to take the risks, to put yourself out there. That creates a life, worth living. At the end of the day, there's lots of. If there's one theme I've learned from this podcast is that these breakthroughs are typically they come from a breakdown of some kind, and it's these breakdown moments where people have some silence to reassess. And this is where a lot of people are calling on God more than ever to really support them through the next chapter of life. And so I appreciate you, bro. This has been an epic conversation. We've spoken all about faith and business and AI and funding and coaching and all the things. Are there any final things, anything we've missed?
No, just appreciate you for making this space, and more people should reach out to Zac to, really just pick his brains, become a part of this, share your message, share your words. So if you're listening to this and you haven't jumped into a podcast and you believe you've got some great understanding, join Zac, reach out to him. Like, don't just be a listener, don't just be a seeker of wisdom, be a giver of wisdom, because podcasts allow you to give back to others. And I think that's really important. Like if you're a business owner or you've got a story, like make sure you reach out to Zac so you can give your wisdom. Don't maintain it for yourself. Give it more. And this is a message for me as well. Like give more of your wisdom to others for those that are seeking. So I appreciate you, bro. I love you, man. Like, truly grateful to God for our friendship and, bringing me on.
Appreciate it, bro. Love you too, and all the good things, the team, and like, yeah, I'm pumped. The future, 2026. It's like it's go time. I can see it. I can feel it. I think there's a lot of like lot of endings that have happened, and this is like just everyone's building up momentum. So if you're out there, if you've valued today's podcast, who do you know who this might help have a breakthrough today? Please share it with them. Please like, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Breakthrough Moment podcast. Thanks, James.